And I'll put the question out there: is that at what age were you when you went left and your friends went right? Because I think every one of us has that moment where we're like, they're going to be those dudes, and I'm going to be this dude. And so it's just when did that occur? And I'll start with myself. For me, it was I want to say it had to be around junior year of high school when I realized that the stuff that they wanted and the stuff that I wanted wasn't the same thing, and we're going to end up going in different directions. And they were still my boys, but I knew that we hadn't left. And I remember clearly thinking, yeah, we're not on the same path anymore. Even at 16, 17, I was like, we're not on the same path. And I felt bad about that, but it's just true, right? It was just true. And I know you guys went through similar stuff. Do you remember what that moment was like for you guys?
For me, I think I hit it a little bit later. I think I was in my 20s. And I realized that I looked around and I looked at my boys and I was like, well, we ain't in the same category anymore. And it's not a problem. You're still my dudes. It's just that I had a different path ahead of me. And I knew what I was trying to do. Like, whether it be married, house, kids, the whole, like I knew that I wanted something different. And they weren't exactly there. They were like, yo, we're gonna run these streets. That's great. I'm not exactly that dude anymore. And it came to be a couple things. One, I was in the corporate world. They weren't. And so it was just like, oh, okay, things have led me to be here. And so I'm gonna make the most of this opportunity. And while y'all still my dudes, y'all can still come to the office, we could chill. And I know on Fridays we're gonna hit the strip clubs, but just being honest,
right.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm usually the one financing because I'm the one with the traditional 9 to 5, right? And so literally it was, my life started to take a different turn when I got into the corporate world and realized that I wanted something different. When I was in high school, everybody was overachievers, so it was fine. When I got to college, we were all together mishmash, but I think 23, 24 is when I realized that there was left turns and right turns in Albuquerque.
Yeah, see, my experience was totally different in that it was the same situation, but I was on the other side of the fence. Not that I was on the street. I remember my friend, and I'm gonna change his name to Larry to protect the guilty, not the innocent. Right. He rolled up in the projects, on a Tuesday afternoon. And we had to be around, like I said, 16.
Steve, still recording? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He rolled up in E-Class Mercedes Benz.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, what you're doing and what I'm doing are not the same thing. And I realized that he was in a Benz and I think I had a 10-speed at the time, right? Literally. And I don't even think all 10 gears worked. I think 6 of those 10 gears worked. The other one, if you shifted to that, bike stopped working. So it was terrible. But I knew that the direction that I was going, and the path that I had ahead of me and the path that he had in front of him were different paths. And I was the non-balling dude at that time, but I knew that we were going to take place. And fast forward, and Richard and I talked about this before. The last time I saw Larry, I went to a store that he owned in Harlem, and I knew that he owned the store, and I was like, is so and so here? Because I'm an old friend of his. I'd like to meet with them. 10 goons came downstairs with guns. We're like, yo, why are you asking about him? That was the last I've ever seen of him. I was like, okay, whatever you're into, that when I mention your name,
black ownership.
No. And I said, whatever you're into that got 10 goons coming downstairs with guns, at the mention of your name, you're going this way. I'm going this way. I was hoping to get a hookup on some sneakers. And I got guns.
Right.
Whatever you're into, you went left, I went right.
Yeah.
No, listen, I think I recall back in the day where, you'd be on the corner and you're talking to your boys and you talk about the 3 things all the time. So it was about cars, because everybody wanted to fly a car, even though it could had a license. They talk about fighting, because that would happen every week. And you talk about girls. So after a period of time doing this week after week, day after day, I was like, my goodness. I was like, we talk about the same 3 things every day. I said, I know I'm not getting a car. I don't want to get in that many fights. These guys want to get into. I said, but I know I can get them. Give me a girl. So I got me a girl. I was like, let me just do that. When I came back to the corner, it was the same 3 topics over again. So I
Like
knew
they
that
hadn't moved.
like we haven't changed at all with it. But the defining point for me was I remember this kid rolls up on the block and it was like, hey, there's a party at this college. Do you guys want to go? So we're like, yeah. So we jump in the car and we go. And as we go, I was like, hey, where'd you get this car from? And he was like, oh, it's my mom's. I was like, mom's? Your mom don't have a car. He's like, oh, it's my mom. I was like, oh boy, we're in a stolen car. So we get to the party and everything else, we're hanging out there. I couldn't even enjoy the party because I was like, man, I gotta get out of here.
That's Grand Theft Auto, dude.
I was like, yo. I was like, know what? I was like, I saw all my boys there. I was like, listen, can I get a ride home? Can I get a ride home? They're like, my card's full. My card's full. It's like, all right. I was like, you know what? God gets me home tonight.
I'm done.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with the girl. That was it for me.
Yeah. I think it was like 13, 12, 13.
Like
So
you did a real early separation.
it was really early because my the group of guys that I hung out with, we were from I think kindergarten, straight up, and so we were together all the time, my neighbors and so forth, and it was a moment where, and I want to say this for a little bit later in our episodes, but nonetheless, I realized that as folks were talking about like it's not mischievous activity because we're mischievous, but when folks were starting to talk about criminal activity, I was like, we have to diverge.
Like, this is not for the
This
kids.
is not for me because my mom's gonna whoop my ass. See,
Right,
I know if 5-0 rolls up to my house,
It's a wrap.
it's a wrap.
It's over.
It's over. Like that's it. No more. And I was like, at that point, I was like, yeah, we're making a split. And I'll the group of us split. And when we split at 13, what I think actually really solidified it is when I came back from college and we were out on my front porch and we were talking about college. People were talking about parties, fraternities. And one of my boys was he was a Kappa. He was talking about all these parties down at this. And my other buddy was talking about college. And then one of our buddies was like, yeah, that's like when I was like, in jail. And I was like,
No, that's not like when you were in jail. That's not the same thing.
not the same
That's-
conversation.
no, that's not the
And I
same
just was
thing.
like,
Uh-oh.
yeah, we can't have
Yeah,
these
we can't do
conversations
it.
anymore.
We can't do it.
Because my summers I wanted to spend at spring break, and a couple of them were spending their summers in prison.
Yeah,
I was like,
it's not the same thing.
it's not the same.
Not the same.
We can't do this.
Thing that happened. And again, I still got love for my boys.
Yeah.
Except for Larry, I think that's what I call him.
Yeah.
Wherever you at, if you're still alive, dude. I don't know, but I hope you're good.
Yeah.
I hope you're good.
And
Proud of black ownership, though.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah, look, I got it. But yeah, I don't even know he's alive. My other boy, again, they went this direction, and I went this direction. Last time I saw him, we were in college actually, and he invited me out to his boat. Who had a boat at 21, right? And he was, I would call him like a drug kingpin, but that would be to diminish where he was. He was more like a drug czar, maybe, right? I don't know what is the right term for that level,
Yeah.
right? When we got on the boat, right, and he's got literally, the girls walking around in the bikini serving us drinks, blah blah blah. He's like, oh, what do you want, steak and lobster and shrimp? I don't care. He's got on the $30,000 bracelets, and I was like, my man.
Yeah.
Do you? I'm gonna enjoy all of this, but I'm still gonna go right while you continue.
They're gonna laugh, yeah.
And that was the last time I saw him as well. I had a great time on his boat, but I still knew that even then there was no deterring me from going left when my path was right.
But I was even when I was 13, I was thinking to myself, I didn't have a plan because, and this is where I think for me, and maybe I'm just wedded on the blueprint because I was thinking about it from a very young age. When my dad passed when I was 12, I was really like lost at that moment, and I didn't even know I was lost. I didn't know I'd be looking back at it now and saying I was lost at that point and had really no direction. And the guys that I was hanging out with, like half of us were in that category, that fathers were not there for whatever reasons. And then I had like my two other buddies. There was probably only two of them that had fathers that were involved. All right. And then they were a little bit like on that next level of strictness. And I was just like, I don't know if I want that either. But I was always looking for a like guidance, and I didn't have it. So I had to make it up as I went along. And I think back now where early on in fatherhood, where folks are like, oh yeah, you're a pretty good dad. And they're like, oh, was your dad? I'm like, nah, I made that shit up. I just, I had to figure it out. I was like, this is what a guy is supposed to do.
Now here's
right?
the crazy thing. I was sitting here and I was just realizing that the three of you all lost a parent early.
Right.
Which is a crazy, I've known all of you for collectively like decades now, and it's the first time I put it together. Right, you lost your dad when you
12.
You were 12, and you lost your mom
8,
and you lost
13.
That is crazy. Yeah. That's crazy. I'm gonna move this camera because I realize Rich can't even talk freely, so I'm gonna be out of the shot for a second, people.
But you know what's crazy about that whole thing? Because like for me, like I saw my father, I saw how he worked. He worked really hard. He's always a hard worker and everything else. And for me, like I said, my mother passed when I was young. I used to say that, I was like, you know what? That's admirable. Because to me, when you have 5 kids and a dad, like most people probably would say, hey, that's a lot to take on and everything else. But I think he did a good job with that. But you mentioned something else around where you were going and everything else. And sort of like, hey, at 13, you laid this plan out. And I remember in high school, they had all the jobs posted to high school. You can just take a job for like a weekend or a week or whatever. So I was like, I need some money, so I'm gonna go take this job. And I went down to this job. It was right down from my house. It was like a factory. It was like a mile or whatever from the house. So I walked to this factory, and this dude was like, I want you to take these boxes, and they were like 2 feet by 2 feet full of baseball hats. So they weren't heavy and anything else. But he says, take those boxes and fill that 18-wheeler tractor trailer. I said, 18-wheeler? I looked at that thing, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So he's like, yeah, you do that, and then I'll come back and check on you. So I did it, and I filled this thing up. I filled it 3/4 away by hand. I would go pick it up. At first, I started with like 2 boxes because it was easy. Then my arms got all tired. I got one. And at the end, the guy was like, you're a good worker. I was like, oh, he's like, and he gives me $60 straight cash. I was like, yo, that's good. $60, I'm in high school. So
that was big bucks in the
was. Yeah, I was about to give me a Sherlin. Shoot, I'm like, yep. Let me hit Jamaica Avenue a little bit.
The Hillary, Delancey.
But so the guy was like, so he gave me the money, and the next thing I see, another worker comes with a forklift and takes a forklift with all the boxes and finish. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I was like, all you had to do is teach me how to do the forklift. Instead, you had me do all this manual labor. And I went home, I couldn't even lift my arms up. He was like, you coming back tomorrow? I said, no, sir. That is it for me. I'm gonna hit these books. That was the defining moment for me.
So the irony is that you were saying that, your group around you. So like you, my father passed when I was 13, and the group that I had around me literally were all predominantly single parent mother households. Like fathers that were either absent or fathers had passed away or what have you. And it was just really interesting that like literally we created our own bubble for many, many years. And it's a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because like you're insulated with someone who understands exactly what you've gone through. It's a curse because you kind of don't see anything outside of that because you're insulated in this little vacuum. And I honestly didn't start to see different life until honestly college. Because now I wasn't with my group anymore because they were all around and I was upstate. And it's just really interesting because, you look back and you're like, oh, that was great. Oh,
that was terrible.
That was terrible. We walled ourselves off because of the pain that we had, the shared trauma that we had all gone through. But I think in retrospect, that shared trauma and that wall that we built put us on an island that we honestly didn't know we were on until like later in life. And then it was like, oh, we need to grow up now. And it's just like,
Yeah, but do you ever think that that's what was needed at that time for you guys
Well,
to sort of
absolutely.
get through that?
absolutely. Absolutely. Like we were all there to support each other. Like literally like one dude's father was in the military and he just had PTSD and never came back. Like, so he just disappeared. Another dude's mom passed away like 3 years into our relationship. My dad passed away when I was a freshman in high school. Another dude's mom passed. And so like we just banded together. We just stuck together because it was safe.
Yeah.
You know, the world was rough outside. This little circle here was pretty safe, and it was cool for many years until it was just like, oh, we got to do different stuff now, and yeah, we ain't doing the same stuff anymore. So
Yeah, I believe everything happens for a reason. So I'm a big thing in like
very
this is
pragmatic of you.
Yeah, it does. I think it does. I think things happen for a reason. So it's crazy. So just thinking back when my mother passed away, I didn't cry at all.
neither did I.
So no tears, nothing.
One tear.
Yeah, because I thought she was in a lot of pain when I was going to school. So I was like, this is probably better off for her and anything else like that. But I used to always think that people say, hey, why did why does God take the young? Type of thing. I said, because if he took that jerk on the street, nobody cared. So I think it teaches you a little humanity, humility about things, and just like appreciation for what you have. So for me, I think all those things happen for a reason. So unfortunately, I'm maybe a little crass at times, but like I'm not big on sort of like death at times. I'm like, yeah, I understand it's hurtful, but it's going to teach someone else a different lesson around you or something like that. So I'm like, and that's probably the wrong way to approach it, but
No, look, it is what it is. We all developed those mechanisms that help us survive, right? Because we were dealing with the lack of direction, and we were trying to figure out a way to make boundaries for ourselves that made sense, that were going to get us from where we were to where we need to be based on what we thought was the best thing. And like I said, I think in the end, our choices kind of all led us to the right place, and we've all kind of been successful with that. Whereas again, other people make different choices, and their lives have worked out different ways on both sides. There are people who are more successful than we are, and more people than less. But the big thing for me with this whole group coming together was, I remember being 18 and like Rich said, not feeling really rudderless. And you knew me at 18, and I was really kind of rudderless. Any advice would have been better than most of the advice that I was getting, because I wasn't getting any advice, right? I was like, yo, Steve, what do you think? Right? Like my advice at 18 was from Steve, who was also 18,
okay.
right? And Free, who was 20,
Yeah.
right?
I was wise though.
You're very wise. Hey, look, right here. So I give you that. But so
Put him on his path.
Look where he's at now. Even
he
thank
was
you.
saying left the circle, right the circle,
So
wax and the floor.
So let me ask a question. So I met you when you were like what, 24?
23, 24,
Okay.
something like that.
So from 18 to 24, because when I met you at 24, like you seem to have your shit together,
Yeah.
right?
It's the thinnest of veneers.
I got you. But for me, who was like 21, who had no pieces of shit together, you seem to have your shit together. So in those intervening years between 18 and 24, 23, did you give him lots of advice?
Lots of
You
shit.
should have had me in your life.
Oh,
Is that what you're saying? I hear what you're saying, brother. That's what you need.
Look,
Talk to me.
Look, I'm just saying. I'm saying that, but that's the truth of it. Is that and we see, and me and Rich were talking about this. We see this even now. Is that most of the time that we spend like in these groups talking, it's as beneficial to me to just hear the crazy stuff that he's going through, just to kind of say to myself, I'm not effing crazy.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
This is not.
You're not
case.
alone.
Right. And I see the same with Steve, same thing with Irie. It's just like, okay, so people out there watching, this helps us as much as it helps you.
Yeah.
Like, and you might be like, oh, this is great. It helps me a lot. It's nothing to do with you and everything to do with us. But yes, but that's the truth, is that it benefits us as much as it does anything else.
Yeah.